Hey guys, my name is Nimit, and this is the fourth episode of MedBoys. And today's special episode is on stocks and the stock market. Today we have here Rushil and Nimit, and we're just going to be discussing how stocks is relevant in student life. So, firstly, it's considered somewhat of a side hustle, and people usually start getting into stocks in their adult ages, but nowadays people are starting to get into their when they're teenagers and when they're young adults. And the reason they do this is because they want to diversify their streams of income. And we all know that the medical field or even the engineering field or any field, I guess, of education is getting more expensive on a day-to-day basis. And additionally, during the pandemic, people are losing their jobs in-person jobs. So people find that the stock market engagement for them is much more easier and much more helpful because it's just a side income that they're getting from home, and they don't have to go in person somewhere. But there's also negatives to this situation, which is that first of all, it's unpredictable and it's risky, and there's always an exponential increase or a decrease. So you could always lose money when you're invested in stocks. To talk more about stocks, we have someone who is much more experienced in this field, and his name is Raj Patel. Raj, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, hey guys, my name is Raj Patel. Currently, I'm a fourth year student of computer science at the University of Toronto. Like Naman said, I have tons of experience with the stock market. I started around the age of 16, but that was more of just like kind of studying what the markets were like. So I actually started investing at the age of 17, and I did very well for myself.
Okay, so Raj, you said you started at the age of 16, right?
Yep.
That's a very young age. So how you said that you were doing research. So what types of research were you doing?
So
were you reading books, courses?
Basically what I was doing at first was I just started searching stuff online, right? Things like what is the stock market? How does it work? How do people actually make money? And then I started reading more books on the stock market. For example, I read a couple of books from Warren Buffett and their family members, and that gives you really good insight because he's considered to be one of the best investors in the world. So it's always good to learn from more experienced people like them and just from people around you.
So you said that you read books on Warren Buffett, but you also consulted websites? So are there any good websites that you can suggest for someone who is just starting out in stocks?
Yeah, so one of the greatest websites that I found was Investopedia. I'm not sure if maybe they changed their name because I remember they changed it like halfway at some point, but that has some really good information. And then I started kind of looking into like stocks patterns, right? Like different patterns in different stocks and how you could use them to make money. I think that website was called stockspatterns.com or .ca. I'm not sure. I might have to look into that and then give that link to you guys later.
So Raj, did you use a simulator of any kind to learn?
Yeah. So like I said, with Investopedia, they also have a simulator. So it's always good to start with a simulator, especially if you're new to stocks, mainly because the first biggest mistake that people make is they think that right off the bat, they can start making money, right? But that's not true. You need to get a feel for the markets. You need to practice them. You need to know how to handle yourself under stress, what you're going to do in situations when you lose money, because as we all know, in the stock market, you can't always make money. There will always be some days or some trades you make where you lose money, and that just kind of brings you down, right? So you have to be aware of that. And the best thing you can do is first practice, then invest real money.
So speaking more to that, what are some of the strategies that you use to decide which stocks to buy and at what times is appropriate to buy these stocks? And how do you decide to sell these stocks at the appropriate time?
Right. So when I first started out, I kind of started with day trading. So what that essentially meant was I would do tons of research within, a couple of nights and then decide which stocks to buy based on that. So things I would look at was how good is the company, right? Does it have a lot of good publicity? Is it making a lot of money or does it have a lot of debts? Generally, you want a company with tons of revenue, low debts, and great publicity. right? So the biggest things that we can think of, the biggest companies that we can think of are things like Microsoft or Apple, right? Then you have things like Facebook. But then the thing about Facebook is that sometimes they run into these kind of scandals. So, investors or people such as ourselves, we might think of it as, it's not a good investment, but that's not true. Facebook is a huge company, and despite all the bad publicity it may have gotten in the past, it's always making money. So it's considered to be one of the best investments out there.
Yeah, Raj, I actually wanted to step back a little and I wanted to ask you, you said you started at the age of 16 and you mentioned that you read a lot of books, but what was your motivation behind actually getting into stocks? And how do you think it's impacted your student life now that you're almost graduating from university?
Yeah, so I actually started stocks because of my cousin, right? So he's 3 years older than me. So he was doing a course on financial investments, and he kind of showed me all these different things. So I got interested with it, and I started seeing the potential of, investing $1,000 and making 10,000 by the end of 2 years or whatever, right? So gaining those 500, 600, 700% profit margins.
So you think the biggest motivation for people is basically money, right? They don't go in trying to learn. They go in trying to make money, like you said.
Yeah,
Before.
exactly. Like with the stock market, it's not like a university course, right? You can't learn something from a professor. It's more of just yourself. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from just practicing.
So Raj, I wanted to get your opinion on two things that are very famous these days in pop culture. First of all, the Tesla stock. As we all know how much it's been going up. And the second thing is cryptocurrency, because even the Bitcoin just passed $30,000. So I just want to know what you feel about both those things.
Okay, so let's start with Tesla first. The great thing about Tesla is that it has a really good management team, right? For example, Elon Musk is considered to be one of the greatest investors and inventors of our time, right? So generally you want someone like that running your company, right? And he makes all these really smart decisions. He's creating this whole new different thing for the automotive industry. He's helping the environment by creating an electric car. So all these things, you consider them to be good news. You consider them to be just great things, right? So it's definitely a great company to invest in. But personally, I wouldn't invest into it because I just feel like the price is too high. And especially with COVID right now, everybody's going into tech, right? Which is great, but that might cause an overvaluation of the company itself. As for cryptocurrency, I just don't like it because there's just no government institution behind it, right? With companies, you have things like financials, you have government aid, you have banks, right, giving out all these different loans. With cryptocurrencies, you have none of that. There's no one monitoring anything, right? It's just a bunch of random people buying and selling, and generally, I just don't trust that. And if you look at the past history of, let's say, Bitcoin, you're going to see a lot of big ups and downs, and that huge and high amount of volatility is generally where people lose a lot of money.
So I'm actually intrigued by that one point you made about Tesla, the fact that you wouldn't invest in Tesla because the price is simply too high. So for students like us, is there a correct amount of principal that we need to start investing? Is there a value like that you would recommend?
So me personally, I started with 1,500 Canadian dollars. I would say if you can, nowadays, it would be best to start with around 2,000, 2,500. But again, you can start with any amount. The thing about the stock market is it isn't about how much money you invest. It's about how much money you can make based on the percentages, right? So I can have $1,000, you can have 10,000, right? If you make $1,000 and I only make 100, obviously you made more, but percentage-wise, we both made the same amount. You made 10%, I made 10%, right? So effectively, we're both doing good at investing, right? So what I tell people is look at the percentages rather than the price. The only time you should look at the price is when you're actually considering getting into the company, right? Buying the stock of a company. Because if you only have $1,000 and you buy Tesla for now, let's say, you can only buy one share, right? So if the price goes up $10, that's great. You made $10, but you want to make more than that, And a lot of brokerages also have commissions, which are $10, $20. So you might lose your gains just from the commission.
So Raj, what you said about the 10%, that you have to look at the percentages, not just the price, to see what you're truly gaining, right? So how do you stop yourself from becoming too greedy? Because you might see that there's a chance here and you can invest your money there, but it might be a little too risky. So how do you stop yourself during those times?
Right. So it's always hard to control your emotions. Even with me, even as an experienced trader, sometimes I get greedy because it just happens. You start making money, you get onto that roll, and then you start thinking, oh, well, if I invest like this, or if I invest into this company, there's a lot of margin. I can make a lot of money. But what you need to do is you need to create rules for yourself. And no matter what, you have to stick to them, right? But sometimes you forget. So the best thing you can do is every month or every now and then, just look at those rules one more time, right? Remind yourself that you made those rules for a reason. They're there for a reason to prevent you from doing dumb things, right? And that usually helps you make less mistakes. Obviously, it's not going to prevent, from you being greedy. That's just how the stock market is. But you'll definitely see an improvement in the way you trade.
So Raj, I wanted to ask you, why do you think that people when they're young, they need someone's support to start the stock market? Because I know that you started off with your cousin and you started off by reading books and stuff. But I guess my question was, what's the earliest age do you think someone can start using stocks or getting into stocks?
Right. So the legal age is 18, right? You can't create an account without it. But the way I did it was I had my parents start an account for me, and I essentially just traded for them, which is also okay, right? So I would say generally there's no recommended age of when you should start, right? But it's best if you start at the earliest age possible, right? That way, by the time you retire or by the time you get to some end goal, let's say you want to keep trading until you're 40 or 50, right? You'll have that extra bit amount of time to make as much profit as possible. And you don't need the support of someone to actually get started, right? You can do it on your own. There's books, there's videos, you have YouTube. You can use all these different resources to just get started on yourself. But the main thing you have to do is just practice, especially on a simulator.
But Raj, I think the term trading and stock market, I think it's a little too intimidating for people at times. It's kind of foreign. So I know you're not trading all the time because of school and work and things like that. But when you are just trading, can you walk us through a day of what you would do?
Right. So there's actually different types of trading, right? So you have day trading. Day trading is essentially you buy a stock today, you sell it in a few hours, or maybe you sell it the next day, right? That's really fast pace of trading. And that's where you kind of see a lot of these gamblers and stuff. So I don't really like to do that. What I like to stick to is long-term trading. And that's what some of these big investors do, right? So I try to copy what they do, right? Because clearly they're successful and I want to be successful just like them. So what I do is I'll buy a stock today. I'll clearly and I'll just look at all the financials, right? I'll take my time. I don't care if the price goes up while I'm looking over this company or whatever. I'll just take my time. I'll look at the financials. I'll look at the publicity it's getting. Is it making money? Is it losing money? How much debt it has acquired? If I like it, I'll wait for a good time to buy in, and then I'll just wait. It doesn't matter when I sell. To me, I could hold for a month, I could hold for a year, I could hold for 3 years, right? As long as the price goes up, as long as it goes up, I'm happy.
And of course, there are situations where the price doesn't go up. And unfortunately, you've made a mistake, whether it be due to greed, whether it be due to a miscommunication or a mistiming in how you trade a stock. So Raj, can you tell us about how someone who made a mistake could bounce back and potentially recover from that mistake?
Right. So the first thing is when you do make a mistake, generally most people don't realize that they've made a mistake, right? They just keep thinking, oh, well, yeah, okay, it's down today, but it'll go up tomorrow and then the next day and then the day after that. So the first and the biggest thing is first you have to realize your mistake. So how you can do that is if you don't see the price moving too much, if it's not going up too much or going down, you might as well just sell the stock and just take the loss, whatever it is, right? Move on, right? This is what happens when people get greedy, right? When you wait for too long, especially when the stock market has gone down or you made a mistake, you're basically becoming greedy, right? Don't do that, right? Go back to those rules that we talked about. Just take a look at them again, sell your stock. And the thing you have to realize is that there's always more opportunities, right? You don't have to be stuck into that one particular investment. There's a bunch of different companies that you can look at. There's a bunch of different industries that you can look at. For example, right now with COVID, tech is doing great, right? So if you want to invest in something, you could invest in something like Shopify or Apple or Microsoft. Airlines, they're not doing so well, right? If you look at Air Canada, they're losing millions of dollars a day, right? But if you look at their stock, it's not just crashing down all the way to zero. They're not going bankrupt, right? It's consolidating. It's right now, it's between $22 and $23. So it's a good time to buy because you know that in the future, when this entire pandemic ends, it'll most likely go up, right? Flights will begin to resume. People will trust it more. Airlines will take precautions. Governments will take precautions. So something like this will probably not happen for a long, long time.
Raj, from everything that you've said, it seems like there's still a lot to think about and there's a lot to research when you actually buy a stock or when you want to sell stocks. So on average, how much time did you spend in total just thinking or spending time on stocks on an average day in your student life? Because student life is busy at the end of the day. So since you're suggesting it to students, how long do you think they should be spending every day?
Definitely. Like it takes a really long time to just go through everything. But like I said, you don't have to go through every little detail, right? Go through the main important ones. Go through the revenue, right? Look at their income statements for the past 2 or 3 years, right? Read some articles, right? What is the CEO doing, right? How are they handling some of these different situations, right? Do you trust these people? Right? Because the biggest thing with any company is first you have to trust them. You have to trust them that they're making good use of your money, right? So generally, I spend maybe an hour a day just looking over these different things. Like I said, you don't have to make a decision every single day, right? You can take your time. It's best that you take your time and evaluate all these different things on different days.
And Raj, I've known you for a long time. I know that you're a student, you have a job. How do you balance all these things with doing the stock market and like with your school and your work?
Right. So with the stock market, all I have to do is just buy and sell, right? So that doesn't take too long. And like I said, with the research, an hour a day is fine. So I can do it after work. I can do it maybe, just before I go to sleep or while I'm eating or whatever, right? So the best way to balance it is try not to become that day trader that I was talking about, right? Because that's extremely stressful because then you have to conduct all this huge amounts of research, right? Look at all these different things really fast, right? So choose a company, choose a good company, things like big companies, right? You can go for all these blue chip stocks like Microsoft, Apple, and Tesla, right? Buy them and just wait, right? Keep looking at how your investment's doing every single day, right? At the beginning of the markets, maybe at lunch, at the end of the day. See if it's still something you want to hold on to. If you decide that it's not something you want to hold on to, sell. Look for something else.
Sorry, I wanted to get your last opinion on something. There's a lot of influencers out there, stock market influencers. What's your opinion on them? Because they do take a lot of money asking you just to give you some advice on stock markets. Well, what's your say on that?
Right. So I'd say with influencers, I don't really prefer them as much as other people might. I'm not saying that, they're not good at what they do, that they don't know anything about the markets. Of course they do. They know exactly what they're talking about, but everyone has a different trading strategy, right? Me, I like to trade for long terms, right? I like to hold on to a company for a couple of years or a couple of months. Other people like it fast paced, right? Because that's just kind of what they think about the stock market is that, you buy now, you sell now, right? So it depends on your trading strategy. And like I said, I follow some of the biggest investors like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, I see what type of trades they're making through articles that I read. I look at how they're making their trades. I look at their reasoning behind that trade. Because if you look at them, sometimes they pass on what might seem like a good opportunity, but they have a really good reasoning behind it, right? They're some of the best investors for a reason. So looking at their trades, it can help you improve your strategy.
I think that brings us to the conclusion of this episode. Thank you for coming to talk with us, Raj. I know all the tips you gave me today is going to make me very rich in the future. And I'll be annoying you again and again with whether I should buy a candidate today or if I should buy Tesla. But thank you once again. And to our viewers, we'll see you soon.